Welcome, everyone, to a transgenerational experience. This is our program for Black History Month. Tonight, your host will be Dr. James Dula. A transgenerational experience. And he will be moderating us and getting us ready for our speakers. We have a few guest speakers, but tonight I would like to tell you why we're doing this. We would like to explore the social cultural experiences and how they have affected who we have become. So, introducing Dr. J. A. Dula. He is a retired and highly decorated military officer who has served as a U.S. Air Force commander for many years around the world. Today, he is a social cultural anthropologist, inspiring others to view reality, ponder the facts, and arrive at the truth. He believes we as people and or society flourish based on truth versus speculation. Introducing Dr. James Dula.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much for that introduction, Tara Lewis. And let me say, first of all, it is my pleasure to be here with you and so many others tonight. And I just can't thank the spirit I have seen from those of you that are making a difference in our community and making this broadcast possible. Tara Lewis, Crystal Glenn, Montre, Dupree, you guys are just fantastic. And from an evolutionary elder to you, I want to say this is what our generations are all about. The elders passing the torch to the new generation that is growing and will assume our place in the future. And you're just doing a great job, and I just wanted to pass that out. Today, I often ask myself, when did we transcend from being uh, a society where uh, we were family to becoming a society where what have you done for me lately? And that's what's important as we continue to look to the future and to prepare our children to take our place. It was Dr. W.B. Du Bois who said, "We light the path for future generations." But in order for them to be able to assume their rightful place on the throne, per se, uh, we as elders must stand tall, and we must teach our youth to stand tall. Because when we don't, then we are losing a big part of who we are. Later on, toward the end of the program, I will talk about history. I will talk about preparing our next generation for leadership. I will look at back to the future as we continue to look forward and prepare them so that they are ready to address any challenges that comes their way. People in my age group, we've already had our challenges. We had our challenges through Jim Crow. I was born under Jim Crow. We had our challenges during the civil rights movement, and we're facing new challenges today. That's why transgenerational education is so important, because if we don't teach it now, how are our kids going to get it for the future? So that's why we're here tonight, and I look forward to having a great discussion as we have some super people who are going to present to you and share their ideas on who we are, where we're going, and more importantly, how do we get there? You know, I often say to my students, I said, arriving is important, but once you've arrived, what are you going to do with it? Frederick Douglass said, continue to agitate. The struggle is not dead. So in America, we must continue to struggle. But how are we going to do that? So here we are. I want to thank Ms. Tara Lewis once again for allowing me to open up the program. And as we march forward, keep in mind that we prepare the next generation for the challenges they will face today and beyond until tomorrow. So thank you, Ms. Lewis, and I'll turn it back over to you and the next speaker. But just remember what I said. When did we evolve from a people where we are family and arrive at the place where what have you done for me lately? And we'll talk about that a little later. Thank you.
Interviewing our next, our first speaker, which is Ms. Sharon Parker of Rosa Inc. Ms. Sharon Parker works for the federal government at Housing and Urban Development for over 35 years. She serves as a housing project manager. She loves working with the next generation and empowering youth to tap into leadership skills, such as potential project management. Sharon is very passionate about inspiring and connecting boys and girls with established professionals in an array of business industries. Sharon is also a community servant and serves as president for the Maryland's Association of African, the Maryland's Association of American Mothers, Inc. since 2016. She was recognized in 2013 as Maryland's AMI Mother of Achievement for numerous RISE community youth activities she's hosted. Sharon also serves as president for the Remembering Our Ancestors Synergistic Association, which is ROSA. This organization empowers individuals to follow in the footsteps of positive individuals. Sharon was a former president for the HUD Robert C. Weaver, Blacks in Government. Welcoming Ms. Sharon Parker.
Good evening. Good evening. So I just want to start off by saying thank you, Dr. Dula, for the invite. We go back a little bit at Crossland High School. And I tell you, I'm a true believer that whatever titles I may have or may have had, there was always someone before me to help me get me in the door. And Sandra Kraft was just one of those people. And I met you through Sandra Kraft. So I just want to say that I applaud your introduction. I am 100% on board with what you're saying. And I hope Rosa can be one of those, continue to be one of those organizations that's doing exactly what you speak about, which is making a pathway for the next generation and doing it unconditionally. So, yeah, y'all feel free to ask me any questions. I'm here. If you want me to go raw, I can do it. So, Tara, I'll just start from the beginning. Again, I want to applaud you and Chris as well because we've met here in Maryland under some platforms with Sir Charles Carey and other platforms that we met on. And I agree with Dr. Dula. You are doing a fabulous job, and passing the torch to the next generation is something that all must continue to do. But guys, let me just give you a little history about what I've been doing in the community over, I would say, the last 14 years. For those who don't know me, I started, me and my board members started Rosa back in 2007. We became official and we launched in 2008. Yes, the same year President Barack became president and his wonderful wife, Michelle Obama, was first lady. And they motivated me. They motivated me to do everything in my power to follow in leadership. In order for me to do that, I had to go out there and learn a little bit about my own history first. And I had to learn about, where did I come from? What do I have in me? What are these, gifts that I have in me? And am I creating these same gifts for the next generation? So over the last, I would say 14 years, we've been really, really collaborating, what I would like to say, building positive synergy in the community, connecting people together, connecting our youth together, connecting our elders together. There hasn't been one event that I have not had all generations in the room. 4 different generations, sometimes 5 different generations in the room, working together, collaborating, and sharing their story. So as Tara said, I work in the federal government, and I love project management because project management keeps me focused, helps keeps me, in alignment with what it takes to develop a team, lead a team, and most importantly, know that the end users are the one who's going to benefit from it. So I've been working with the National Congress of Black Women, the National Urban League, the Cardozo Educational Campus. We've been able to bring people into those places under a program that we call RISE. And RISE means Rosa Youth Empowerment Series. And we started that back in 2016, and we haven't stopped. We're going to be working with the DC Marion Summer Youth Program. This will be our 6th year working with them. And that's what I do. I do exactly what Dr. Dula was talking about, passing that torch, making it not about, what has someone done for me lately, but, what can I do for others to help them along the way? Because I remember when I was 5 years old in my hometown, in an urban, very rural, not urban, but a very rural community called Calvert County, Maryland. Only 45 minutes from Washington, D.C., but it was like, hundreds of miles away because my mom did not have a car. So unfortunately, I consider myself stuck in the country. But at 5 years old, I talk about me being a civil rights baby. In my book, True Synergy Work, Leading Within, the 7 Defining Principles of Knowing Yourself to Birth Greatness, I share in that book about me being a civil rights baby. And at 5 years old, when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, I shared before that I went on the church ground, and I was already playing at the time, but I asked God, why is it that people of color are not liked by others? Expecting an answer, didn't get one, went back to plan. Four decades later, I get birthed into Rosa, and I started learning about my history, about African American history, about other cultures' history, and I started just sharing with everyone that would listen. Well, as I was learning about history, I got the answer, and that was, sometimes people are intimidated, they're scared, and they really want to control people who are great. And all that I was studying, I was reading nothing but great things, great inventors, great scholars, great, entertainers, great mathematicians, scientists. I was reading all of this great stuff about Black people. And that was my answer. The reason why I believe sometimes Blacks are being mistreated, because a lot of people know what resides in us. And they benefit from that 24/7, financially, physically, socially, all you can possibly think of. So my job was easy. It was to, how would I inspire the next generation to follow in the footsteps of our elders first, and then look at established professionals out there doing what they're doing in the community, and hopefully connecting them with established professionals who are serving the community, and most importantly, causing them to want to share their voice, to want to, lead under whatever their passion, their dream, and their initiative was. And that's what I've done over the years. Just, be a vehicle for building synergy. I could go on and on and on and on, but I just thank God just for keeping me focused. I thank Him for allowing me to tell my civil rights story. And I'm so glad to be here on the last day, of course, Black History Month. But, my mindset is Black History is 365 every year. So I've been doing it for 14 years now, over 4,000 days, doing promoting. So when people say that, we need more organization, we need more people doing, what they're not teaching our children in school. Well, sometimes we just have to go out there and Google someone like Rosa, Remembering Our Ancestors Synergistic Association, and just see what we're doing. And we're just doing a lot, and we're not doing it alone. We're doing it with so many different people. And I'm just so honored to be here to share my story.
Thank you, Ms. Sharon. We appreciate it. We appreciate you giving us the background on Rosa and what you do and why you do it. Next up, we have our second speaker, and we'll be having Miss Montre Dupree introduce this young man.
Training the next generation, bridging the gap. And James is definitely our next generation of leaders, within that next generation of leaders, and he will definitely be making an impact in our community. James Collier is the 12-year-old founder and CEO of 3 for Me, Bullying Free for Me Inc. is an anti-bullying movement that provides resources to children, educators, parents, and communities to help children overcome bullying. He and his mother implemented the program when James became a victim of bullying, and even started acting out himself and withdrawing. So together they created this wonderful program, Three for Me Bullying, anti-bullying program. And it is my pleasure to introduce James. He is such a phenomenal and talented young man, and I can't wait for you to meet him. So, James Collier.
Hello, everyone. As said before, my name is James Collier, and I'm the Chief Visionary Officer of Three for Me Inc., the anti-bullying movement, which is, my anti-bullying company that helps kids overcome bullying with three things: love, plan, and create. Love, plan, create, which is love yourself, say affirmations, and there is also, after love yourself, there is plan how to end bullying, or maybe if someone's bullying you, then make a plan with a parent. This is for the kids. Make a plan with the parent so you can find a way to end the bullying, so that you don't just have to go up and say, oh, you're whatever, and with like bully him or something like that. And then there's create, like use your negative feelings because you've been bullied. Use your negative feelings. Okay, you can use your negative feelings to create whatever you like to do. Maybe if it's drawing, if it's anything, drawing, art, maybe listen to music, make music, coding, whatever. And it all started back in 2018 when I was being bullied. And back then I was in aftercare and no one would play with me. There was this one kid who would, one time he started choking me. That's physical bullying, which is just all physical stuff, kicking, punching, pushing. And then he called me names like idiot and stuff. And then after that, there's also social bullying. He told everyone to not play with me. And then I drew this little 4-page comic book. And once I drew it, I gave it home to I came home to talk to Mom. And she told me, hey, you want to publish this? And I was like, yeah, because it was a new experience. I hadn't published a book before. So I did that, and I was really excited because I'm really excited because my third and fourth book dropped. I'm waiting for it to print, but my first and second book, it's a 4-series comic book. So my first and second book are here, and my third and fourth book are coming out soon. And Black history is really a great experience. Like I want to grow up and be a Black pilot and then be in the Air Force. I want to be in one of those F-15s flying all the way off around my house, making all that noise while I'm trying to get my schoolwork done. So that's what I want to do. I want to be a part of Black history. I want to just be a part of everything, pretty much. I also want to be an astronaut when I grow up. And I've actually met an Air Force pilot. His name was Charles McGee. He was one of the original Tuskegee Airmen. He has recently died. I'm very sad that happens, but I will tell you about my experience with him. So my experience, it all started out in a museum when I got a book and I got it signed. So, he is a brigadier, Brigadier Charles McGee. And then he had a microphone. We sat down and listened to his story. And it was pretty interesting since he had been bullied in earlier years, segregation. Back then, actually, here's a fun fact. Black people have been in every U.S. conflict for the last 200 years. But the white people at the time didn't think that they were still good enough for war. So they didn't think that they were efficient. So they had separate barracks, separate medical, uh, separate army hospitals, separate everything. They didn't have the right. They didn't have enough munitions. All the munitions went to the white soldiers, and they were normally used for labor jobs, like maybe unloading and loading supplies, and a bunch of other stuff. So after that, he told me all about that, and I also that later that day I actually met another pilot who flew the jets. He had also been segregated, a victim of segregation, and he gave me these little model planes with some paints, and I literally sat down, got a bunch of newspaper, sat down, and painted and did those little model planes. I was really excited because this is my first time ever experiencing those things from a Black pilot. So I'm very happy to be a part of the Black community.
Thank you so much, James. You are
No
so
problem.
phenomenal. I remember the first time I met you, and not only James also encourages entrepreneurship of other youth. He has a group of youth also that are young entrepreneurs, and he's just making a dynamic impact in the community. Again, the next generation will definitely have some great leaders if we're looking at leaders like James. So thank you again for joining us tonight.
No problem.
Absolutely. So I'd like to, before we move on to the next part of the program, I'd like to share with you all some quotes by Dr. Dula. The first quote, regarding peaceful coexistence, we may not travel the same path nor march in stride, but with determination and will, we will get there together. All education does not take place in the classroom. However, without education, regardless of where or how it is obtained, one is doomed to ignorance. Thank you so much, Dr. Dula, for these great quotes. They are definitely impactful to each of us. So thank you.
Our next guest speaker is Samay Rashad. And he is a dynamic project manager and engineer who brings his love for solving problems to organizations and big and small to impact the family unit, the community, and nation. Samay was born in Oakland, California, and was raised in Prince George's County, Maryland. He attended Bowie State University, where he studied mathematics, and Morgan State University, where he studied industrial and systems engineering, and he graduated magna cum laude. In his day job, he advises clients on strategy and technology. In addition, Samay has also used his creative voice to write for a family and parenting blog, Living as We Are, the on success blog for the Washington Post, and co-hosted the Men Towards Fathers podcast and Tiny Till Learns to Color, A Little Crayon Search for Purpose, which is his debut children's book. Samay is also a family man, and he has been married for 10 years and has 2 sons and a daughter. Welcoming Samay Rashad.
Hey, good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, glad to be here tonight. Good evening to everybody. Got baby girl with me here, so hopefully she stays asleep. But this is a great. It's great to be here with everybody. Um, and I'm guessing I should talk a little bit about what Black History Month means to me, right? All right. So Black History Month for me, I mean, that is a loaded question. I'll start with some perspective, right? So I am actually half African American and Filipino, and like many others in this country, I'm like a melting pot of different backgrounds. You pull up the ancestry.com, and there's my chart is all over the place. I got some Inuits, which is from Alaska. I got West Africa, and of course the Philippines and America and Jamaica. And so my family lineage is all over the place, and identity is, I think, when I think about Black history, my parents ingrained in us, their own personal perspectives. My dad's from New York City, Brooklyn. My mom is from Oakland, California, the Bay Area. And so history, Black history, you think about culture, which is like music, the food we eat. It's the knowledge and education and passing it on, like Dr. Dula has done over the years. I mean, I fell in love with W.B. Du Bois and all the different debates of our, from a scholarly perspective, in my college years, interning with the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce. And fast forward, now that I have children, 3 in fact, I wanted to have conversations about diversity with my children and not run into the same challenges I had as a youth. My mom and dad, while they taught us a lot about history, they didn't talk us about their unique perspectives per se. That you might be of the generation where some things they just weren't spoken about, and so for me, I struggled with understanding where I came from, and so I wrote a book. Tiny Teal Learns the Color. It's about a little teal crayon whose mom is blue, his dad is green, he's something in between. And he's trying to figure out his purpose, like many of us. And I think that that's universal. And so when you think about history, and as African Americans, as people of African heritage, being robbed of our heritage, where do we come from? It's something we still deal with today. And I don't want to be caught off guard. I don't think many parents want to be caught off guard when their children ask them, we got all this stuff now. You can pull up ancestry and DNA. Tell me a little bit about, this country. I'm Nigeria, or tell me a little bit about, how we got here. You want to be able to have a conversation with your children because their minds are just a blank slate. And so, for me, Tiny Teal, color the world and color it well is the life of a crayon from Colorsville. It's the opening quote. Everybody's searching for a purpose. But in order to have a purpose, I think my perspective, we have to know where we come from. We have to know what's in us. My grandfather, both of my grandfathers, my mother and my wife are all artists. My sons are artists. I mean, we're all artists. That's what Picasso says. So we have to do a better job of helping our kids understand where they come from in order so they can have a purpose, so they can know what their purpose is and feel confident in it. And so Black history for me is also discovery. I'll leave it with that. If there's more time, I can go more into it, but you got past, present, future history. Black history bridge is the bridge between. Thank you.
Thank you, Samay. We appreciate you coming on and telling us a little bit about what you have going on, and we look forward to you joining the discussion, which will be coming up soon. But right now, we have two more quotes that will be said by Montre Dupree, and they're, of course, by the Socratic speaker.
Absolutely. My country, 'tis of thee, without my liberty, a place of love without love we forever see. On vision, critical thinking is a choice we as a people must embrace to replace doubt with hope and fear with faith. And that concludes your quotes.
Thanks, Montre.
Absolutely.
So what we want to do right now, we want to bring up Dr. Dula, the Socratic speaker. He's also known as the Socratic speaker and the founder of the Socratic agenda. And we want to bring up the rest of our speakers, and we want to get into a conversation about the transgenerational experience. And this is the whole purpose of this program, is to connect past and present so we can light the path for future generations. And what a little bit of what everybody said today, Miss Sharon, James, Samay, everybody kind of had a piece of that. So I want to open the floor for you guys to have a conversation about this. Dr. Dula, of course, we want you to lead that conversation. You always have a great knowledge and wisdom for us. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Dr. D.
Well, thank you, Ms. Lewis. I appreciate that. And I want to say to our speakers, your points were well taken, because you see where we have been and where we need to go. And Black History Month is an opportunity for us to come together in a spirit of unity so that we can share with one another our experiences as we look back and as we look forward. I often tell people we must stay on our toes. We cannot be complacent, because complacency is the beginning of eradication, thus minimizing transitional education with the ability to act constructively in a unified manner. So we must always think forward. We must always make sure that we're working together. And to James, I would like to say this. I am a person that served in the United States Air Force for 30 years, and it wasn't always easy. When I went in, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I just kept working hard. I kept following the principle that Dr. W. Du Bois said when he said that we must always look to the future. We must always work together, and because divided we will fall, but together we will remain strong. So I looked to my ancestors, and I looked to my grandparents and my parents, and said, and I saw the faith that they had in me, and I took that as strength. I took it as strength because I knew that if they believed in me, then I could believe in myself, and the future was going to be bright. That's why I met Miss Sharon Parker. I often tell people I turned down a six-figure salary to teach high school, and people told me, you must be crazy. Those kids don't want to learn anything, and I would look at them and say, with an attitude like that, they certainly wouldn't learn anything. So Ms. Park and I came together. We touched many lives, and today I look back at young men like Samay Rashad, who, when I was the president and CEO of the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce, he walked into the office and more or less said, with two other young men, and said, we want to be here to be mentored. And I think he was probably a sophomore or junior at Bowie State University at that time. And I took him under my wing, and I'm so proud of him today because I followed his progress as he went on to the engineering school at Morgan State University. And when he was married, I met his beautiful young wife, and now they have 3 kids together. He still owes me a meal. I bought the first one. But that's what it's all about. When I think about the transgenerational experience, there were a lot of bad things that happened in our community. Mm-hmm. I mean, stop and think about it. We were taken from our motherland in shackles, brought across the Middle Passage. And those of us that survived were known as to be the strongest of the strong. But yet it wasn't over. The journey was tough. We worked in cotton fields from sun up to sundown. We're beaten if we had a dissenting opinion. We're killed if we decided to run away for freedom. Had to steal away to worship God. And what many don't realize, when our people were brought from Africa to here, they already had religions. How many of you have seen Roots? When we look at Roots, Kunta Kinte would not eat the pork. Why would he not eat the pork? He was a Muslim, and it was hard to break his will. So we have endured a lot of cultural changes that where in Africa would have been commonplace, but here we had to learn new rules and regulations and how to thrive. So the challenges were real, but thank God we had people like Nat Turner. I like Nat Turner. You know, he had a vision, but he was a rebellious soul. Thank God we had people like Harriet Tubman, and her 200th birthday is next month. And I'm encouraging everybody to wear something red, green, and black on their lapel or on their wrist to signify that she was a true warrior, a military warrior. She led campaigns. She led people to freedom. And I think it's important that we as a people remember who we are by remembering those that came before us and paved the way. They lit the path for us, their future generation. So their posterity was their prosperity was our posterity. We are that next generation. They prospered because they were a strong-willed people. They weren't always rich. I'm not talking about prospering in money, but they prospered because of the will of the mind, and they were strong people, and they gave birth to us. And so it's up to us now to light the path for that next generation. Rashad spoke of Dr. W.B. Du Bois. If you haven't read The Souls of Black Folk, you need to get in there and take a look at it, because he talks about the people. He talks about respecting ourselves, and he talks about coming together to work for brighter days ahead. He said that we don't want to wait another 400 years to get freedom and equality and justice. We'd already endured 400 years of slavery. We want our freedom and equality and justice today.
That's right.
Know? And I take that and I put it together with Malcolm X, who said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. And I thought about that. And I thought about the 20th century and the 21st century. And I said, that's a true statement. But now it's time to crawl from under that rock, because we are an educated people. We are a smart people. Our only handicap is we have to get back to working in a spirit of unity so that we benefit one another. When I was growing up, and maybe some other callers on here, the elders always told us, if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your race. Do it for your race. I'll say that again. If you don't do it for yourself, do it for your race, because they understood that if you look good, the race looked good. So we've got to get back to that mentality to where we see ourselves not as 3/5 of the person, not as a worthless person, not as someone that can't achieve and dream and reach new heights, but go back to that time when faith ruled who we were.
Exactly.
It was a big part of who we were.
Dr. Dula,
Go ahead.
I do not like interrupting you.
You're fine.
Because you are just a historian within your own right. But I just wanted to point out something that I've noticed just about your platform, and also your message for today. So I believe you have 4 generations right now on the screen. Your generation, I'm a generation, Rashad is a generation, and his baby is a generation, right? So you are doing it. You have created this platform where now you're speaking the words that these generation needs to know about. But I also want to share another perspective also. And you mentioned about what you went through at your generation. In my generation, I'm a baby boomer. Okay, I'm not a traditional like my mom. I'm not a millennial. I'm not a Gen Z or one of those X's. You know, I'm not. I'm just a baby boomer. But I came on the end of the baby boom. I'm like the year before it turned into a millennial. I am born, right? So I didn't experience what your generation did. My generation had it a little easier than your generation because my mom, they worked the fields, they worked the tobacco fields, the farm fields. I didn't have to do that. But they instilled in me that I had to get an education. Yes, things were rough. Yes, we were poor. We may have had 40 acres in Calvert County, Maryland, and we may have had land and houses or whatever, but we were still poor. But we worked hard to work the land. So only thing I had to do was go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and then figure out what I wanted to do in life. So I had a hard head. So it took me a little longer to get where I needed to go. But I did finally settle down in the government. So I'm sharing it to share that this next generation coming behind us now, or like my daughter, you know, she's following in my path. You know, she's gone to school, got her education, and now she's working. But I am a little concerned about my grandchildren. My grandchildren, I'm so extremely concerned about because the doors that either were closed or even were open are not readily open for them today. You know those things called fobs where you gotta use to get into a building where those grandkids can't get into those buildings like we did in our generation to meet people, to learn about whatever they're doing behind the scenes that we weren't invited to. So I'm a lot concerned about them too. But I also want to share that there's some great stuff happening for African Americans today. You know, for the last year, unfortunately, George Floyd had to die in order for the world to revisit African American history and culture. And I'm here to tell you every platform I can think of is talking African American history right now. Okay, you turn on the television, they're talking African American history and culture. You turn on the radio, the podcast, the Zooms, even some schools, they're talking it. So we have done our job and we're continuing to do it. Now I think it's about how to use, like you said, we build that unity. I call it synergy, you call it unity. How do we come together now and recognize what everyone is doing so that we can do it collectively for the benefit of the community?
Yeah, I think, Sharon, as you said, the world is watching. We're all talking about it. And it's using social media, using virtual platforms to stay engaged and bridging the disconnect with intergenerational panels such as this one,
Yes.
And making it intentional so that there is impact. When my son was in school, we had grandparents in the classroom who were volunteers, and that made such a difference because the children, one, they were able to learn how to respect their elders, not just in the home, but also in the communities.
Yes.
And so continuing to be intentional about those interactions and how to stay connected, even though we're still socially distancing in some ways, but using virtual platforms to meet the different age groups and again, bridge that generational gap and make it a transgenerational experience.
Absolutely.
So I think programs like this format in our faith-based institutions, just be intentional about the impact that we're trying to make. So I think this is a great start for that.
Exactly.
You know, you're right. This is a great start. It is the beginning of a new movement because I often tell people the struggle is not dead. We are still in the middle of a revolutionary change. 2 years ago, we were wondering what's the next step because we saw a new old mentality surface that did not quite put us in the light that we wanted to be put in. Did not quite look at us as we thought we should be looked at. My generation has been through that. But you're right. How do we prepare the next generation for what we're seeing in America today?
Right.
I mean, it's evident that I may have grown up under Jim Crow, but Junior is right back in the fray.
Yeah.
And so we've got to prepare them, and that's why it's important, as Ms. Parker said, that we get back to working together, that we keep things like programs like this moving forward, and that we keep, as James said, that we keep planning. When I was growing up, James, I would spend Saturday mornings in NAACP, National Association of Advancement of Colored People meetings in one church. And then that afternoon, I was sitting in the Southern Christian Leadership Church, SCLC, for another meeting. So between the two, we were able to plan our movement forward.
Mhm.
Planning is very important.
Mhm.
So now we have to come back together and start looking at how we move your generation forward so that you understand the role you will play in present day society.
Exactly.
Hey,
And
Doc. Oh, I was sorry, Sharon. Do you want to go?
no, go ahead, please.
I was going to actually respond to your point and Doc's point, because I feel like when I was coming of age and I was an intern with the chamber. I was probably like freshman, sophomore, actually, when we started. Right, there was like I could look to many of the things that just worked. Like if I wear the right clothes, if I have the right mentality, if I have a business card, like there's going to be opportunities that just open, right? Just simple things like that, setting myself apart professionally. But to Sharon's point about some of the doors that have closed for the my baby girl's generation, her brothers, there are also new opportunities, right? Like I'm starting to ask myself, my wife and I talk about this all the time, like what do they like? I'm like, we need to save for college, and she's like, do they need to go to college, right? You can learn AWS for free, Amazon Web Services. You can learn to draw. You can become, many of our youth want to be producers and or get into NFTs and things like that. You can learn all of that for free, or come up with a model where you start to learn for free and then you start to get paid, and you can easily, not easily, you got to put in work, but there's so many different avenues for youth for people in general. Even if you're restarting your career, and you're a grandmother, you can create a digital business at the click of a button. Back in that time when I was coming up, or even prior, you had to go to a market, and it was a one-to-one relationship. But now you can have a business across the globe and never leave your couch. So there's new opportunities, and I think we just have to think a little bit more, like to James' point about planning and what you were saying, Doc. We have to kind of upend those old ways of thinking, or ways that worked in a non-digital environment. Because I published a book because the publishing companies, like, they just didn't get back to me. They didn't respond to my email. And everybody's I self-published. Everybody's like way of doing it was their own. Like they had their own form. You got to email this person. Don't email us for 3 months. There's all these like rules. But I have a friend who works at Amazon. He was like, you can be published tomorrow. You can sell your book tomorrow on Amazon. I was like, why am I wasted a year, Doc? I wasted a year trying to traditionally publish. So this book that I wrote was written in like 2019. I published it last year. I wasted a year trying to work with an agent and publishing house. So sorry. And Wow Radio, a comment on Wow Radio. I remember when they got in the game early on the podcast, right? Before everybody started to do it. So we also have to look out when those new opportunities come out, and teach people how to take those tools and use them, so we can create more opportunities.
Absolutely. And then, to add to what you're saying, when you talked about your book, a lot of people are here today, and I'm going to have to keep it real. I tell people there's always two sides to every story, right? You got those who want to help you, and you got those, and I'm talking about even your own kind sometimes, okay? And you have those who want to help you, but take from you while they're helping you. So how do you distinguish those two? And sometimes we are our own worst enemy because we let money drive us. And when money drives us, we miss out on so many great connections and so many great opportunities. I know a lot of people here. I get it that you're a professional. I get it that you're a speaker, you're an author, you're a coach, you're a mentor, but you have a job, okay? And you may be in the corporate business. Well, it's not right to take for someone who don't have a job just to pretend that they're on your level because they are an author or a coach. And a lot of that has been going on for, I would say, I've recognized it for the last 5 years. There used to be predatory housing going on out there. Now it's predatory entrepreneurship, if you will, if you will. And I'm asking, and I'm sharing this because I'm asking the public just to be considerate of what people, especially the disadvantaged people, are going through. They don't have funds. Even if they're willing to spend money they don't have, it's not fair to take it. So the fact that you went on Amazon and got your book published, kudos to you, because you didn't wait for that published company to get back to you, or someone acting like a publishing company to get back to you. But I do want to ask James a question. James, it was mentioned earlier that how can we kind of bridge the gap between the next generation? You said you wrote 4 books, and I thought I heard you say 4 books. But is your mom and your grandmom, are they in support of you, and are they learning from what you're doing, or are you all learning collectively?
We're all learning with me. My grandmother is recently deceased back February 2021, I think.
So sorry.
But oh, it's fine. Then, I mean, me and my mom were helping. We set up a Canvas account. We do everything together. She helps me with getting events and driving me to events. She's basically my momager, if you could say it that way. You could say that.
Awesome.
Say it that way.
I love it.
James, can I interject, please? James, could you tell them about the comic book and your artwork and how you retain rights to the artwork for your comic book, please?
So the artwork. Well, really, the artwork on the book is not my artwork. I'm terrible at drawing. It is by someone from Egypt. So I sent over the books and stuff, and then I sent over like the script. I have this tiny notebook. We would put all the script in there, send it to him with like page 4, box 4. Put it into a little book and put it into a little just a text. Send it to him, and he makes wonders. So out of all the 4 books, I'm thinking that the 4th is my favorite because it's just, I'm not going to do spoilers though, because you might want to read it.
Well, I want to purchase it. So put your website in the chat or something. I want that book.
As we continue to move forward, let's just change the subject just a little bit. I can remember that when I was coming up, we had sayings that my grandparents and my nurturing community, because I actually grew up in a village community surrounded by relatives who had to come home from World War II, and those that were working hard in the gardens to put food on the table and things of that nature. But one of the sayings I always use still today is that honesty is the best policy. And as we enter this new era, and I'm listening to some of the comments, maybe we have to focus on what is honesty in today's world. And I was in a conversation a few times over the last couple of months that talked about voting, and it said, the reason that we oftentimes find ourselves in places we don't want to be as a society is because we vote for charisma, we vote for smiles, we vote for dress, and we forget that the most important factor is to vote based on knowledge.
Yes.
My father used to say, vote your knowledge, when he would pick up the seniors in the station wagon. For those of you that don't know what a station wagon was, it was a precursor to the SUV. And he would drive around the community and pick up the seniors at that time and drive them to the polls. That's what you call community unity.
Yes.
The senior, those young men that had come back from World War II, like my dad, who had fought in the Navy in the Pacific, going from island to island, resupplying the troops on the ground with we call it bullets and beans. He never talked about that. He was such a humble person. He would never talk about what he did. But after he passed, I found his diary. And then I learned, the sacrifice he had made and why I was the way that I was. Because he always said, walk like a man, always be honest. Integrity is important.
Yes.
Do the right things. And maybe we need to get back to some of those old sayings, doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. There's many lessons that we need to teach our younger generation that we take for granted that they know, but we've never told them.
Right.
We've never told them. And I've often heard people say, you may not think they're listening when you speak to them, but when they need it, they can recall it.
Exactly.
Yes.
As a teacher, I used to have people bringing their sons into my office. And they would say, Dr. Dula, would you talk to my son because I don't know what to do anymore? And I would often tell the parent that when you stop talking, you start losing.
Yes.
And I would tell them the story about my daughter when I would take her to McDonald's, because every time I would ask her, how's your day? It was always fine. How's everything going? Fine. Well, fine got to be old. That wasn't fine. So I would take my daughter to McDonald's, and if she's on tonight, she knows this is true. I would take her to McDonald's, and we would sit with a Big Mac or whatever, a cheeseburger, and I learned more than I wanted to learn because you took them to a place of comfort.
Yes.
To where they felt comfortable to express themselves. And I would tell them, take your son or your daughter out to a park, buy a hamburger. And Samay, you're going to need this later on. And just let nature take its course. And I never had a parent to come back to me, never, and say it didn't work. So we need to get back to our roots. We don't eat at the dinner table anymore, so we can't have a conversation around evening meal. But we can certainly find places where we can go to say things like, honesty is the best policy.
Right.
Keep the faith. Keep hope alive. You are somebody. Integrity matters. Like Samay said, my segregated school, when we showed up at that segregated school, the principal was at the door to make sure that we were dressed appropriately, to make sure that we, our shoes, even though they were tennis shoes, we might have walked through mud to get there. You'd already gone to the bathroom to clean them up because the principal was going to give you a shakedown. Because they were teaching us standards. They were teaching us values.
Yes.
They were teaching us how to act as in a civilized world where people were judging you by how you look.
Right.
And today, I still shine my shoes. Miss Parker, you might know this. I went to Crosstown every day with a shiny pair of shoes. My pants were creased, a nice clean shirt.
Absolutely.
And the kids would look at me and they would say, he dresses nice every day. But I knew that it worked when prom time came or something happened at the school, and that young man came into my room and he said, Mr. Dula, how you like these shoes? How you like this tie? See, as I said before, you may not think they're listening. You may not think they're looking, but they see everything you do. And if it's the honorable thing, they will imitate it because their
Yes.
mind says they want to be like you.
So, Dr. Dula, let me ask, and all of the things you just shared are definitely character building skills that even us adults needs to continuously remember, even when, like you said, people are not watching. Okay, we need to remember how we're acting behind the scenes. We need to remember how we're acting in front of our children. When no one's watching, and even especially when you're out in the public. Are there some transgenerational tools that can be used to help us, you know, um, engage one another, collaborate better? Like this platform, for example, is definitely, I would consider a tool. Young people are so smart now, they're born into technology. So at 1, 2, 3 years old, they're clicking on this and they're clicking on that. So how can we, use these platforms to build a way of, just connecting with the next generation? And I'll just share one that I just stumbled across. Don't laugh at me, y'all, but I stumbled across one. Okay, and that was, I wrote my book back in 2017, 5 years ago. And I asked my children and my grandkids, read my book, read my book, read my book. And my daughter read my book, and my grandkids, like, I'm going to read it. And then I started working with the Marionberry Summer Youth Program. And I brought my granddaughter on. I said, I'm going to pay you, because DC can't pay you because you live in Maryland, but I'm going to pay you to be a part of this program, a junior project management program. And I want you to learn how to do flyers. I want you to learn how to speak to professionals. I want you to do all this. But then it hit me. Why couldn't she was doing everything I asked her to do, and she was doing it really, really good. So I said to her, I said, you know what? I want you to read my book, and I want you to put it in a voiceover format. That little girl, that little granddaughter of mine was like, well, Grandma, how much you gonna pay me? I said, I'll pay you, but I'm not gonna pay you until it gets done. So of course, 3 weeks go by and she wants an advance, and it didn't do the work, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna pay you until you get this done. So she finally sent me about 3 chapters of my book, where she read it in a voiceover, but she used that technology. I still don't know how she did it, but she used that technology, and she sent me a text and said, here it is. Can I get paid now? But she learned, that was an aspect of her learning, a little bit about her own family story, even though she wanted to get paid for it. So that's just one example. Can you provide some others?
Mm. One of the things that I have begun doing is getting out into the community and visiting with people that I know to be, let's say, transgenerationalists.
Mm.
And that's a tough word for a country boy from North Carolina to say. That's a tongue twister. People like Miss Arrington, who is at St. Stephen's Baptist Church, I think it is, who are taking in children and working with them to help them restructure their lives so they can see the worth in being ambitious, the worth in dreaming, the worth in working hard to achieve certain goals. And there are other examples that I have run in through different ministries who are beginning to do the same thing, to take a look at the next generation of young leaders who
Yes.
need that extra guidance and finding out the right button to push to help that child see that they are somebody and
Yes.
they're worth something. And I think that,
Hmm.
my generation, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it, so don't shoot me. We believed in pulling up our pants and walking with dignity.
Mhm.
When did we start having the audacity to think that it was okay to walk around and show your undergarments?
Mm.
My generation says, what happened? Where did we go wrong? See, we don't say where the kids go wrong because we teach them better, they act better. But we say to ourselves, where did we go wrong? And we're trying to figure all that out now.
Mm.
I won't see that change that's needed to get back to where we were in my lifetime, because we're talking about a multi-generational uh, uh, mind conditioning thing.
Yes.
But if it doesn't
Excuse me.
start now with us here today, and if we don't keep this group and the people on this line coming together to share ideas and share our concerns and talk about how we can overcome some things.
Yes.
But it's going to be very difficult to climb to that mountaintop of where we want to be.
Exactly.
But the only way we're going to be able to do it is, what is that saying? Each one touch one.
Each one teach one.
Teach one, touch one.
Teach
You know,
touch
you got to touch them too, and be honest about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I can remember at the chamber, Samay, when I was there and we first formed that group, and you may remember this. I brought about a half dozen, no, it was about 10 or 12 students, college students from across the region. And we sat down at my conference table and I said, you know what? We're here because we want to help you achieve your dreams. And one of the young ladies raised her hand and she said, you know, I think that's wonderful, but will you be here tomorrow?
Right. Right.
We must operate in a spirit of unity and a spirit of honesty in a way that the kids know that we're here for the long haul.
Yes.
Because they're tired of these short-term, short-time people that come in their lives and then they're gone, and then they're still there saying, "What happened?
Yes.
What did I do wrong?"
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to be in it for the long haul, and be there for miles and miles and miles to go, because our children are looking at us and they're depending on us to do that.
Yes, Dr. Dula, that brings us to our moment of quotes. But before we start before I share the next set of quotes with you, I'd just like to ask each of the guests to please share your social media handles.
Okay, I'll start.
No, she's asking for a social media handle. I have no idea what she's talking about.
So your Facebook, your Instagram, or
Oh,
LinkedIn.
okay. Like I tell you guys, I learned to type on an old manual typewriter. One step beyond smoke signals.
Yes.
So who do you want to start first?
Why don't you start, Ms. Parker?
Okay. So I keep in mind, I'm a generation behind Dr. Dula. So, I like to always start with my website, okay, before I do my social media handle. But I mentioned it earlier as www.roasaliv as in Victor, es.org. That's www.rosaliz.org. And then I also have a project management website as well, and it's called www.themakingofyou.com. Again, www.themakingofyou.com. But if you want to switch on over to the social media side, you can go to my Instagram. You can look for Sharon_leading_within, or you can just find me on social on Facebook as Sharon Parker. I normally got a picture of myself with, something going on, giving you access to my different websites as well. So yeah, so Sharon_leading_within, or just Google Sharon Parker and a lot of my stuff come up. I've been promoting stuff for years, so I'm up there in the top, search parts now when you Google my name. So I'm happy about that.
Thank you so much. And Samaj, is your internet working now? Are you able to give us a social media handle? Maybe not. Looks like he's frozen still.
Can you hear me?
All right. Yes.
All right. I'm just going to talk. If you can't hear me, I'll try again. But it's so I'm Samay Rashad again. My book website, my publishing website is www.tinytailbooks.com, and you can find the Instagram handle for that, or Facebook handle for Facebook and Instagram at Tiny Tail Books. And then my personal one, feel free to follow me there. Thought leadership and things like that. Life, family stuff on it's at Samazing, SEMAZING. And I see you got it on the screen. Thanks again.
And you're up next, James.
So I have Facebook and Instagram and my website. That's what I'm going to do. So my Facebook and Instagram are both the same. It is the number 4 ME space capital THE space capital A and then NTI hyphen bullying space movement at capital M. Then my Instagram is the same, or it's just all smooshed in through for me, the anti-bullying movement. And my website is www.iii, the number 4 ME inc.com. It's circling around in the bottom.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much.
No
Dr. Dula, we can find you on Facebook under the
Socratic speaker.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks to Tara Lewis and Crystal Glenn, who gave me that title. they administer the Facebook, and I don't have a clue half the time, how to put things in there. They do it all for me. So thank you.
That brings us to our next quote. If I cannot achieve independently, I can strive to achieve with unity. And as you have shared throughout this chat, Dr. Dula, the benefits of mentoring and the importance and significance of mentoring on evolutionary elders beyond the obvious. Evolutionary elders look beyond the obvious to see the possibilities. And that concludes your quotes for this evening.
I have one more.
Oh.
And every quote comes with a story. So please indulge me. As I was teaching world history, I often taught about a young man by the name of Buddha, who was born with a so-called silver spoon in his mouth. But he was a very curious person. And he ventured outside his comfort zone one day to find out what was outside the walls of his existence. And he saw many things from death and sickness and despair. And he started his journey to try to become enlightened, to see the world in a different way. And I wrote one quote that I'd like for you to comment on, everyone to comment on this, because it is something that we all experience, we see, but sometimes we don't understand it. And it goes like this. Enlightenment is fueled by the wise who see life for what it is and do something about it. Now read it again. Enlightenment is fueled by the wise who see life for what it is and do something about it. I was listening to each one of you, especially James, as he was talking about being bullying. Wise young man. He saw life for what it was and said that I'm not going to be captured in this moment to where I give up. I'm going to keep hope alive, and wisely I'm going to move past this. I'm sure he had to think it through and plan his next footsteps. But he made a wise decision because he saw, in order for him to arrive at his truth, in order for him to become enlightened, he had to rise above that bullying that was taking place in his life. And it worked. He is really, really on the road to success, and I'm really looking forward to keeping up with him as we go through. I was listening to Miss Parker, and some of the things that she said. She's a wise person who has become enlightened because of what she has seen in life, and because of her inner feelings that said there's more that I can do to make a difference. And she's out there doing it. I look at Samay, that young man that came into my office and said, there's more to life, and I want to learn what it is. He was seeking enlightenment. How do I become more knowledgeable so that I can arrive at my own truth? Because truth comes from within.
Yes.
And you have to figure out life in order to arrive at that truth. Sometimes you have to weigh different decisions. Sometimes you have to go through conflict. But enlightenment is when that light bulb goes off and you say, I got it.
Yeah.
And I see that in Miss Dupree every day. I've seen it in Tara Lewis. I've seen it in many people in my life. I've seen it in Crystal Glenn. They came in at the Chamber of Commerce just like Rashad did. And they walked in and said, we want help. We're looking at doing some things with our lives. But they were two young ladies, and I guess in their early 20s, and they were trying to figure it out. But by interacting with people who helped guide their footsteps, and by growing older and seeing the world for what it is, they gained that enlightenment. That light bulb went off, and they said, "This is who I am. This is where I'm going." And like Dr. King said, we got to keep on dreaming. But if we don't teach a kid to dream, if we don't teach that they're worthy, if we don't teach them that they're somebody, and to keep hope alive, they'll give up at the first stage. So enlightenment means get yours, see the world for what it is, and help somebody else along the way. And
I have something to add.
As Dr. Du Bois' philosophy, I live by it every day, and that's something I truly believe in. So when we talk about enlightenment, how does that affect you, who you are?
Let me take a stab at it for me. I shared with everyone that I'm a civil rights baby, 5 years old when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. Knowing how my life was as a child, as my family were deprived, even though we had the essentials, like a home, and we had no transportation, but we had food that we could grow, we could take care of animals, and all of that. But I always felt deprived as a child, and I'm mainly I didn't realize when I was younger, but I was deprived of education. I was deprived of knowledge, and it was the knowledge of self. And the enlightenment for me is recognizing that, but recognizing that God was leading me down that path of knowing, trying to find out who I was. And God was putting my passion in me. And the only thing I had to do was work at it. If I just worked and worked and worked, he would reveal to me what I needed to do to try to add value. I don't need for anything, I don't need for anything. So I don't have to be doing this. I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it for the next generation. So the enlightenment in me is finding out what was my root cause to make me want to go down this path. And then asking God to lead me along the way so that I could discover how to make an impact. And for those who know me, it's all about the next generation. I do it. My enlightenment is the next generation.
You ever heard the saying, the truth shall set you free? When you arrive at that truth and you know who you are,
yes,
and you know the purpose of your life,
yes,
that's when you become free. The
I feel
shackles are
it.
off.
I feel it.
Yeah, the shackles are off.
I think just to say, as you just said, Dr. Dula, when you arrive at that truth, the enlightenment, it's inside. It's something that is yours and yours alone. Your enlightenment is a very personal journey, and you will know once you begin your enlightenment. And there's a natural curiosity, and it grows into a thirst for more. And although it is something that is very personal, to become enlightened, you have to broaden your sense of community, to share ideas, to have a diverse engagements with others, to rationalize, to reason. I think one of the things that I liked in terms of the history and the pictures of seeing the people gathering together, but reasoning and sharing their ideas to each other, and that enlightenment now, the spark that is within you, you're sharing that, just like you're lighting a candle and passing that torch. So that's how that enlightenment becomes, but it has to start. It's a very personal journey, understanding your personal truth for enlightenment to actually take place. So that's what it means to me.
You know, Mr. Dupree, that really uh, made me think, made me go back to think
Mhm.
when I was growing up in Dula Baptist Church in Dula Town, North Carolina.
Mhm.
And if you Google that, you'll find out that the Dulas are a historical family. And PBS has a series on the Dula family for anyone that would like to Google that on PBS. But we always sang in that in our church. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine.
Mhm.
And so what you're saying is that light is on the inside. But once you become enlightened and once you become committed to letting that light shine, others will see that radiant glow that's around you.
Mhm.
And you don't have to go to them, they will gravitate to you because your light is shining. You know, at Crossland, I went in and I said, you know, I'm looking for the student with the bright eyes.
Mm.
And at first, teachers didn't understand what I was talking about. But after a while, they began to catch on. And they came to me and said, Dr. Dula, here's a student over here, or he's going to be in your class, or she's going to be in your class. She's got bright eyes. All it meant was this was a student that wanted to learn. And you could see it in their demeanor. And when they wanted to learn, they were in your face all the time until they got it. And so that's what I'm talking about when we talk about transgenerational experience. We get it based on our environment and our experiences, and we give it to somebody else.
Mm.
We don't let it die with us because when it dies with us, all is lost. So our job, when we cut off our computers today, we turn off the social media, we get out of Facebook. Our job is to once again think, how can I move forward to help the next generation get what they need? And we're not going to solve that today, but I think we should keep this up until we come to some conclusions, until our enlightenment as a group is evident.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yes.
that's what the young lady said to me. You're here today, but will you be here tomorrow?
Mm.
That's what she was talking about. So we have to, you know, I've gone to these sit on panels, panel over here, panel over there, sit on another panel and talk about what the next panel is going to talk about.
Yes.
So finally,
Speaking.
I got tired of sitting on a panel. I said to him one day, I'm not sitting on any more panels until we have a plan. There's that name again, James. Until we have a plan that we can take to the community.
That's right.
Well, I think.
That's our next step.
Mhm.
That's our next step. I think we have uh, uh, we have opened up a new territory here, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter.
Well, the next chapter starts with Carrot Quinn. With Carrot Jim starts the next chapter.
Thank you, Montre.
Oh, I was gonna say, who is that?
Right, Tara.
It's I, Carib Jim, aka Tara, aka Miss Lewis, aka all of that I've been called tonight. Now is the time for Dr. D. This is your time. We want to hear more from you. We've heard from you in the beginning, we've heard from you throughout, and now we want you to kind of close us out. Speakers, please stay on. We're gonna do one last plug before we get off. But we definitely want to give Dr. Dula a few more minutes to talk on to speak on Black History Month and what we've been talking about all night. But before we do that, I told you guys I was going to come back and give more of a plug, more information on Dr. D. So here we go. Dr. James Dula is a social anthropologist with vision to see and courage to act, and a transgenerational educator who understands our future and is determined to measure how well we learn lessons from the past. He is the Socratic speaker. It is the method of delivering the Socratic agenda, which is a theory. So, with that being said, Socratic speaking encourages others to seek enlightenment through self examination in order to arrive at the truth. Dr. Dula believes that Through the study of history, social, and environmental influences, we see reality before us and then must determine where we fit in based on personal values and the social norms within our environment. That is how we see the truth. The Socratic Agenda is a community-based initiative driven by community stakeholders dedicated to identifying and impacting items of interest, social and political, affecting our world today. That is what the Socratic speaker speaks of. The Socratic Agenda employs the philosophy of Dr. W.E. Du Bois, whereas we must strive for continuous improvement, realizing one can do a lot, but two can do so much more. The country today is divided racially, economically, and socially. However, the future can be brightened with interactive, intergenerational sharing and understanding. I'm going to welcome right now to the stage Dr. James Dula, aka the Socratic speaker.
Well, thank you, Tara, once again. And I want to thank everyone that presented tonight. I think it's been a lively discussion. And I want to thank everyone that brought this broadcast to us, Tara, Crystal, Mr. Dupree, because this is the type of forums we need now more than ever before. Because we know that society is changing. We know that our role must be to prepare the next generation. We know that we are being watched in everything we do. We understand that there are those out in the community seeking enlightenment, and we must use our historical facts, and I'll say it again, historical facts, to be able to show them the way to achieve success in life. I often do it by talking history. I love history, and I love talking about the great kingdoms of Africa when we were kings and queens in our own motherland. I love talking about King Mansa Musa, who was the king of the richest kingdom in the world at that time. I love talking about Queen Nzinga and how she protected her kingdom and did not allow the Dutch or anyone else to infiltrate her kingdom and enslave her people. For 50 years, she ruled on the throne. I love to talk about the strength of our Black community. I love to talk about Harriet Tubman and how she rose up to be a champion of the people. And I often talk about it was her tenacity to go back down into slave territory time and time again to rescue slaves and to rescue her parents and to rescue her brother and to rescue family members and guide their paths to freedom. I often talked about having the educational desire to learn more and to achieve more that Frederick Douglass had when he escaped slavery and rose up to be one of the best orators that the world has ever known. Self-taught, self-educated, but he had to depend on himself and that inner spirit to guide his footsteps forward. I talked a lot about A. Philip Randolph and how he was important in educating people to the fact that if they just only came together in a spirit of unity, they could make a difference. And because of his leadership, it gave rise to a young man who gave a I Have the Dream speech, standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial with words that will go down in history. I often say words that will live in infamy. I often think about the Kings and the Rosetta Parks and the Malcolm X's and the W.B. Du Bois's and the Booker T. Washingtons that had the nerve to step out to make a difference, even when it was risky, even when it was not popular. Something inside them said, "I got mine. Now I have to help somebody else." And that's the theme of tonight. When we talk about transgenerational experience, we're talking about exactly about getting yours and then going out and helping somebody else. If you don't do it for yourself, as we used to say, do it for your race, because we've come a long way, but we've got a long way to go. And by working with people like Sharon Parker, with some Samay Rashad, with Master James, with Dupree, with Lewis, with Glenn, all those of you that had a thumbprint on this program tonight. I know that we're going to open up new territories. We're going to contact new people. We're going to make a difference in our world, and I'm comfortable with that. I looked at my history to say we did it our way. Now, youth, you have to do it your way. But stand on the shoulders of those that got you here. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to get a mentor that will guide you in the in the right direction. Ask them, how do I do this? How do I do that? Where do we go from here? And remember what Dr. Du Bois said: reading is fundamental. Read, very important on the road to enlightenment. So, Miss Tara Lewis, I'll leave with this thought: one can do a lot of things, but two can do much more. And so, with that, I will turn it back over to Miss Lewis. I want to thank everyone that's here on the program tonight, and I'm looking forward to the next program already. Thank you.
Okay, so what we're gonna do right now, we're gonna do some last minute social media plugs. So I want to start with Master James. I love that name. I like Dr. Dula called you that. Let's start with our youngest.
Okay, so I have my website at www.iii the number 4 meinc.com, and then I have my Facebook at There's for Me Inc. The Anti-Bullying Movement. That's the same for my Instagram, and so that's all.
All right, next up, we're gonna have Miss Sharon Parker. Please give us your social media.
Okay, if you could go to Sharon underscore leading underscore within, that's my Instagram. You can also go to my website at www.themakingofyou.com. We're hosting our ninth annual Leading Within conference in May 20th through the 22nd. Looking for speakers, vendors, authors, production team like Tara and her crew. So just know that we're going to be seeking you. But yes, Sharon Parker on Facebook. But definitely, Dr. Dula, I just want to officially say thank you for this platform. Thank your team for the platform. I love it. You're doing wonderful.
All right, our next speaker, Samay, are you there? Can you please plug your social media for us, sir? Samay, I think Samay's freezing. Samay,
All
can you
right.
hear me? Can you plug your social?
Can you hear me now? So Samay
Yes.
Rashad, you can find me at www.tinytealbooks.com. I'm also on Instagram at Tiny Tail Books, so at Tiny Tail Books and at Samazing on Instagram. So this was a great opportunity to just listen, learn, and lead is what I tell my children every day when they go to school. Listen, learn, lead, and love. And I appreciate your love, Doc, and all the speakers. You are a true griot, as they call it, for all your teaching that you continue to do throughout your lifestyle, your life. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Samay. And next up, we have Miss Montre Dupree. Tell everybody who you are, what you do. You were given the quotes for tonight. Give us some information. Yup. Give us some information.
I was not expecting that at all. I'll just say Montre Dupree, community outreach and engagement, volunteer with the Veterans Commission with Dr. Dula. And I'm just happy to be a part of this whole program to share in the community. That's it.
Thank you so much, Montre.
You're so
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Absolutely.
So I guess there's just me. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in. I'm going to speak for myself and Miss Glenn. We are a part of Wild Radio and OG Media Productions. We put on tonight's programming, but you can catch us both at Black Women Connecting Communities. We're there. You check us out. You check out all the women in our collective. Again, that is Black Women Connecting Communities. That's www.blkwomencc.com. You can find out more information about us there. And I definitely want to say also, you could just Google us at BLK Women CC. We are on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. If you just, again, put in BLK Women CC, you will find us. We have a podcast every second and fourth Wednesday of the month. We just wrapped up our Unapologetically Black series last Monday through Wednesday. And we had Miss Sharon Parker on and Miss Dupree on. So please go and check out those episodes. Again, if you just go to www.blkwomencc.com and go to our podcast section, you will find all of that there. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I want to thank all of the speakers. I want to thank Dr. Dula. This was your idea. I definitely have to say this. You wanted, and you've always wanted, to inform and educate everyone about Black history, about our heritage, the royalty. And I want to thank you, sir, for bringing us all in, for taking us all under your wing, for mentoring us. You've done so much for us. And just with you guys listening tonight, I know you, everyone, whether you know him, I know some of you guys know him, some of you guys are getting to know him right now, but he is a Socratic speaker. He cares and he's here to educate. So thank you guys again for joining. Please follow Dr. D. We call him Dr. D, but AKA Dr. James Dula, AKA the Socratic speaker, and he has a lot of other AKAs as well. But please follow him at www.facebook.com/the Socratic speaker, the Socratic speaker on Facebook. If you just search the Socratic speaker, Google him too. You will find out. You can Google his name. You can Google the Socratic speaker. He will be there. So thank you guys. Thanks to our listeners, viewers, speakers, and participants. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
And we will do this again.
Okay.
Yes.
It's on you, Dr. D. I'm throwing it to you. In front of everybody, it's on you. I'm throwing it to you.
We will do it again. Well, just let me say this before we go. Tonight ends Black History Month, but it begins Women's History Month. So let us remember all the Black women who have made many sacrifices for us to be here, and those that influence our lives along the way. So all throughout the month of March, we will be doing some things for on the Facebook website thingy that Tara administers for us. We'll be doing a lot of things throughout the month to highlight Black women during the Women's History Month. Remember, wear your red, black, and green during the month as we celebrate Harriet Tubman's 200th birthday. So with that being said, thank you.